Hello, Wisdom Seekers. Thank you for tuning in to this inaugural episode of the Gathering Wisdom podcast. Maybe it's my Gemini sun or my constant thirst to squeeze the very best juice out of life, but one thing for sure is I'm a big fan of big life changes. And I've been known to blow up parts of my life now and again, reinventing myself kind of like Madonna and navigating huge risks and transitions, all with relative ease and flow. Pivoting is what I consider one of my superpowers, and one thing for sure is that timing is everything. So today I would like to share with you just a little bit about my story and some insights that I've gained along the way to help you figure out when to embrace a good pivot. This is a really relevant theme of my life and a topic that I think we're going to be exploring a lot in this podcast. So let's get into it. Welcome, Wisdom Seekers, to the Gathering Wisdom podcast, Knowledge for the New Paradigm, with me, your host, Robin in the Wild. We're living through some truly transformational times, and if you're anything like me, you're craving ways to cultivate a more conscious and soul-driven life. Join me weekly as we explore a rich tapestry of topics, ranging from mindfulness magic, the science behind the woo, tips for sustainable living, and so much more. Together, we can illuminate the path to a brighter future and guide each other to a more empowered, resilient, and juicy life, one episode at a time. Big shifts and life pivots. Oh, who doesn't love a good life blow up, huh? Burning the ship behind you, starting over, starting fresh, fresh beginnings, shedding weight from something you've been holding on to that was no longer serving you. This could be a job or a relationship or some old version of yourself. And whether you embrace change or just prefer to stay in your comfort zone, you cannot deny that pivoting and shifting is definitely an inevitability of life. So do me a favor and think back to 4 years ago. Remember when the world was shutting down? Think back to that version of yourself, who you were, where you were, who you were with, how you were spending your days. Whether it was a really challenging time for you or a time of metamorphosis, we were really all asked to stop at the same time for a moment and confront things about our life that were not working. It was the start of a global shift of people stepping back from the everyday chaos and distractions of their modern life to take a hard look at what they wanted their life to look like when the world opened up again. For my husband and I, that meant that on New Year's Eve 2021, we decided that we were going to uproot our life in LA and move back to our college town on the Central Coast, something that we didn't think was possible until we reached retirement age. Don't get me wrong, we had a really comfortable living situation at the time. I was literally riding and training horses every day in the foothills of where I grew up, rediscovering parts of my childhood. That was really healing. And my husband had a really comfortable job. And our life really didn't change much during the lockdown, apart from being a little bit more isolated than usual and not really wanting to leave our house or go out. Then I guess we both realized that we had a capacity for so much more. We could feel ourselves kind of leveling off, getting a little comfortable. And within 4 months, we put one offer in on one home, got financing in place to refinance out of a rental building that we owned at the time. And we moved all of our animals to our dream spot on 1.5 acres on top of a hill with a view, during a time where everyone was really panicking about not only the lack of housing, but the rising interest rates. And I'm not going to lie, we got a lot of comments saying, the stars really aligned for you, or I don't even understand how you can make a move so fast. But that's kind of been the trend of our life. And I feel like the word manifestation gets a bad rap nowadays, and it's misused in some capacities, but it's as if the vision we had for our next life materialized in front of us every day that we took actions towards this goal. And everything just fell into place without force, kind of like magic. Now, I don't know where everybody is on their level of comfort with the word manifestation, or where they are on their life journey, but this is 100% how it's supposed to work and how it's supposed to happen. Not that there aren't hiccups or challenges along the way, but generally speaking, if you set your sights on some vision or goal that you have for yourself, The universe really is conspiring for you to make it happen if it's truly aligned for you. So this really brings me to my first point. It might be time for you to pivot if you've become stagnant. So the whole thing about the comfort zone is that it really only gets you so far. It was also during this time that I had just finished renovating our fourplex of rentals, and I was really anxious about where we were headed next in life, me specifically career-wise. I had left the traditional 9 to 5, and I was just on a constant hunt for figuring out how I was going to contribute financially to our family, even though I was managing a couple of different businesses at the time and picking up side work. I had a constant pressure to contribute. As a multifaceted, multi-passionate person, this is not only really uncomfortable, it's a very uncomfortable place to be, but it can be like anxiety ridden because you are having a really difficult time choosing just one direction. Likewise, my husband had kind of reached the ceiling at his job, and he really needed to start to diversify his experience set in order to help advance his career. And we looked around and the opportunities just didn't really exist where we were. So when you've taken the opportunity as far as you can take it, it's definitely time for a change. If you wake up every day and you've got this like underlying boredom or comfort level with your life, it's time for a shift. And if you can't think of anything that lights you up or motivates you or gives you that fire, then you guessed it, it's time to pivot. The comfort zone is there as a haven. It's there for you to seek rest and refuge and rejuvenate until your next big step. So although it can be intimidating or scary to grow into a new life with new skin, or you might just feel like you're just barely managing everyday life, finding the new opportunity is a very critical way to develop not only self-sufficiency, but resiliency, so that no matter what waves come at you, you keep your boat relatively steady. And the more you shift up to that next level, the more comfortable you get with change. We've always been the kind of couple that takes on challenges and bites just enough of what we can chew. Not to the point where we're choking, but definitely to the point where we feel full and we grow into that next iteration of our life. This obviously takes a lot of communication, a lot of alignment with our personalities and our values, and just honestly a lot of heart-to-heart talks about what we both want out of life, because it is a partnership. And working together, we've definitely been able to design a life that we see ourselves growing into every day. So I do want to note, it's great to dream. It's fun to come up with new goals. But if you're anything like me, maybe you've gotten anxious about being stagnant, and then you start to do this thing where you're like a hungry person at a big Las Vegas buffet, where you start to pile a bunch of really unrelated random things onto your plate, only to realize that they just don't resonate with you anymore. So you make all these commitments, and then you slowly have to flake out of them because you realize, I just piled that on because I felt like I had to do something. That is not what we want. And as we get into later episodes of this podcast, I'm going to share with you why this happens and some tools for helping you stay aligned and focused when you're looking for your next level up. It's really critical that it comes from a place of grounded, intuitive, and intentional effort. Most of my unproductive pivots have been made from a place of pure anxiety about how stagnant I've been, or how little I've grown in some random, arbitrary amount of time. So there's absolutely nothing wrong with trying new things, but this is going to save you a lot of money, energy, and sweat and tears if it just starts from an aligned place from the beginning. So you have to be incredibly grounded. You have to have a practice that keeps you present. Otherwise, the stress of not having your next step lined up is going to send you spinning, and then you may jump into something that ultimately is not right for you or aligned for you in the first place. So I get that being stagnant can be really frustrating, and you are like dying for that next change. But trust me on this, life gets so much more flowy and opportunistic and expansive and effortless when you implement a regular grounding or a meditation practice. And I'm really looking forward to getting into more of why behind that in a future episode, but just trust me on that. So it was also around this time last year that I experienced an epic burnout related to work. I was in a job opportunity where I was having a lot of fun, but ultimately spinning my wheels trying to bring 150% to the table where it wasn't really warranted or invited. And getting into human design really helped me dissect what went wrong in that opportunity. And for anyone familiar, I am a 4/6 splenic projector. And let's just say I was praised for how much I could produce over my actual skill set that I could bring to the table. And that opportunity was just not aligned for me. So burning out and recovering from a burnout is a whole other part of my journey that we can talk about at a later time. But for the purposes of this episode, if you are persistently dissatisfied with something in your life, job, people, relationship, living situation, money situation, then guess what? It's time to pivot. Life is too short to be stuck in this state. And honestly, if I have any technology in my life or some appliance or like something stupid like a phone charger that only works half the time, like get rid of it, shed it. This is not where you want to spend your energy. Like spend your time on things that actually work. So I often spend a lot of my time designing my life around household systems to manage all these animals and all the chores that we have on our mini homestead that we're building in order to create the life that we want. And I'm constantly looking for ways to be more efficient because if it doesn't work, it doesn't work for me. Now, not every day needs to be the best day ever, but everything in your life is a choice. Working with that broken phone charger, it's a choice. So why would you ever choose to get frustrated or choose that lower vibration for yourself if you can help it? So depending on what you're unhappy with, I'm not saying that you can just throw parts of your life away in one day. It very well can take a lot of time. And that's definitely a process we can get into at a later episode. But for purposes today, if you keep coming up against some sort of resistance in an area of your life, whether it be a person or an opportunity or a work situation, get grounded, seek guidance, and trust what your intuition is telling you about how to proceed. Okay. And lastly, as of this recording, I am 9.5 months pregnant with my first baby. And that is something that still feels very weird to say out loud. I have made child-free living a part of my identity for the past 10 or so years. And I've been telling myself and everyone around me that I have not wanted kids since I was 18. I was very much on track to be an adventuring animal mom, riding my horses, dabbling in a bunch of different hobbies, slowly building this homestead life that is time consuming here with my husband. And until last year, my life pretty much just revolved around those things: riding my horse, learning new things, building a passive income empire. And I shut the door on having kids collectively with my husband for many reasons. And we just agreed, things that we agreed to, like when we got married. But it was also around this time last year that when we moved, I had burnt out and I knew my next iteration was around the corner and I couldn't quite figure it out. I really took this as a sign to dissect and inventory my life, which included taking a look at my personal values and priorities. I kind of looked at the child-free people in my life, which I'm not knocking the lifestyle, is absolutely something that I was totally on board for at one point. And it just hit me that I had capacity for more. Cue the spiritual awakening. And the more I slowed down, invested in my health, got rid of bad habits, took the time to really learn and get into a meditation and yoga practice, heal some old patterns, inventory my life, and see where it was going, I arrived at my third point, which is the shift of personal values and priorities. So as I started to take inventory of my life, I realized that I was addressing generational trauma. I was making strides in recognizing the patterns of any conditioning. I was healing my inner child by spending time with all my animals and setting up a garden. And I was really cultivating lifelong habits for establishing just like a more grounded, contented life. And just a note on contentment, it is different than happiness or excitement. It's actually a little boring compared to what we traditionally think of a blessed out life. Contentment is just where your emotional pendulum does not swing too far one way or another, no matter what gets thrown at you. You have the ability to kind of keep the boat steady. And in this newfound contentment, I also realized that I had all the tools and capacity, not only for more, but I could handle being a parent. I wanted it. Those fears around what it would mean to raise a child in this modern world became irrelevant. And they just started to kind of shed away. My intuition was sending me deeply rooted messages saying, you are going to be a mother, you're going to raise a leader, and you have to invite yourself to be open for more. So ironically enough, my husband had a vasectomy scheduled in 2 weeks, and we opened a bottle of wine and we just kind of talked about it. And without very much resistance or hesitation, it turned out that he was on board too. And 30 days later, I had a positive pregnancy test. So, and not to sound like one of those women, but I have enjoyed every single minute of this pregnancy. It's been very easy, flowy, and it's really opened up my world in ways that I could not even dream possible. So I don't want it to sound like my life is just free of challenge and obstacles. I mean, during the eclipse season, we definitely had a lot of curveballs thrown at us. It's just that between my husband and I, he is my rock, by the way. Like he just is, he's a Libra, and we just make a really good match in partnership, which is also something that, you know, I had to do a lot of work to align in myself in order to attract. But the universe really does have your back, like Gabrielle Bernstein says. And I want you to think of it as an invisible force that's just carving this groove for your feet to fall right into in front of you. So sometimes it might feel like you're walking blindly forward, but really the more internal work you do before that big life shift, that big pivot, the easier the path will be for you ahead. Pivoting is a superpower that anyone can cultivate, and knowing when to pivot is just a whole other super skill in and of itself. I hope these snippets of my personal journey show actually what's possible for you when you just embrace change from a really aligned place. Each of us really has what we need to step into our highest power. And as uncomfortable or challenging it might be, the sooner you learn to shift, the more you grow and cultivate self-awareness, and the more you can share your life-changing gifts with the rest of the world. So I just want to leave you with that today. I hope you really enjoyed today's episode. And I look forward to getting into more wisdom next week. Thank you for joining me. If this week's topic resonated with you, you can help keep the wisdom flowing by following and sharing with a loved one or fellow seeker. If there's a topic you'd like me to explore or to be a guest on Gathering Wisdom, feel free to reach me at hey@robininthewild.com. Until next time, stay curious.